Hi everyone, I'm Luke Hector and this is The Broken Meeple, a show where I devote my time to ranting and raving about board games, but usually more the latter part. If any of the games on this list have taken your fancy, then perhaps you might want to pay attention to this sponsor, because you might be able to bag a bargain.
As gamers, we find it hard to deal with empty shelves, some worse than others. You therefore want a supplier that has what you need at affordable prices and delivers on time. For me, that supplier is KIENDA. They offer a discount on bulk purchases as well as a point scheme for future acquisitions down the line. If there's a hot title you're after, chances are KIENDA's got it. Wingspan? Mine. Arc Nova? Mine. Eclipse? Actually I hate that game, it's terrible, but you might like it. If you use the referral link in the description below and sign up for a new account, you'll get 5% discount on your first order over £60. So let's make gaps in your collection a thing of the past. Get down to KIENDA and start saving today. Thank you for listening and enjoy the rest of the video.
Get on with it.
We're finally here. It's the top 10 games of all time from my perspective, and you know, you're not going to see a huge amount of differentiation this time round compared to last year because, well, when you have your favourite game ever, or your favourite games in general, it's like, well, they're going to stick around sort of there. It's not like they can kind of be like, oh yeah, this was like the most fantastic thing ever and now all of a sudden it's garbage. You know, that doesn't really take place. But, you know, new games could come out, they could supplant old ones, you never know. And looking at this list, yes, I'm afraid there are no new entries to, my top 50. But some that weren't in the top 10 before have now managed to creep into the top 10, and of course, you're going to see some of my previous favourites in varying positions. So, without further ado, let's wrap this up. My number 10 is going to make a few people very happy because, wow, have I been getting a lot of people sort of go at me going, where's this game, I want this game.
Won't somebody please think of the children?
Calm down, it's coming, okay? You will see it eventually. I've never seen loads of people so desperate for a game to appear on my list, but they can now all calm themselves because yes, here it is. It's here for your viewing pleasure. Here we go. Oop, just with my left hand, which is probably not a good idea. Oh, God blimey. Heavy, heavy, heavy. Yes, finally, it's here. You've waited for it. A lot of you have been like, where's Arnak? You had SETI. Is Arnak not on the list anymore or something? No, Arnak has just managed to creep into the top 10 and barely, only just, but it's managed it. And, people have asked me, which one do you prefer out of SETI and Lost Ruins of Arnak? Well, here's concrete proof. I love them both, but Arnak definitely, I think, has to take the top position. It is quicker to get out, quicker to play than SETI is. It's got a really cool, theme to it. The rules are very streamlined in that there's a decent amount to do, but the rules are very straightforward. It does the whole mixture of a deck builder with the worker placement thing, I think, better than games like Dune Imperium, although let's not get into that debate again because the two games are only comparable by that measure. But I really do enjoy this one. The expansions have certainly helped. I mean, you can't even store everything in one box now. This is the Missing Expedition solo expansion. It's got the first one in here as well. And yeah, it's somewhat packed in. You have to shuffle a few things around, but the folded space insert does a respectable job of keeping everything in here, but it's not perfect. So of course, the new box that's been announced, the treasure box or whatever it's called, yes, I'm definitely interested in that. Given that it's going to be a limited print run, I very much doubt I'm going to get a copy officially to do a video for, but I'll certainly be aiming to get it and do an Instagram, if nothing else, on it to see what, how good it is functionally. But yeah, I'm totally down for something to, stick all of this into one box and have it easier to set up. The new board, I mean, I like new boards. New boards are good, except the new board is a spider board. Yes, it's you've had snake temple, monkey temple, bird temple, whatever. Now you've got spider temple. So the board has a picture of this big spider on top of a entrance to a cave, and yeah, I mean, I'm arachnophobic, so it's not the first choice I would have made for a temple, and certainly it might trigger a few people.
Hi. Hello.
That being said, it's not that bad. I'm arachnophobic and I can stare at the picture without getting a cold sweat, alright? It's not as bad as something like the Arkham Horror games used to do with spiders. And also, it's the best comparison I can think of. It's the difference between staring at a Black Widow spider and staring at Shelob from Lord of the Rings, okay? One of them is real, horrific, and just nightmare fuel. It is just pure nightmare fuel every time I see it. The other one is a CGI monstrosity. It's got two filters in the brain to pass through. One for you to believe it's real and there in the first place, and one for you to believe it's actually there in front of you. It's the difference between CGI and practical effects in movies. So I can look at Shelob in Lord of the Rings it's a little bit like, ugh, it's a spider, I don't like it, but at the end of the day, it's a big CGI effect. It's not quite as bad as something like a fully, you know, a proper real one from real life. So I can stare at that board, it's not too much of a problem, but I digress. I love this one, super smooth, looks gorgeous, the solo expansion, really good little campaign in there. I mean, not from a story perspective, but from a gameplay perspective. The player powers, great to use, not the best with new players, but they are fun to use. This one is just a really good fun game, and it has always been around my kind of top 20 games for the last few years since it came out. It's just now managed to creep into my 10. I played it, you know, a couple of times in the last year, and each time I was teaching new people. Oh no, 2 times I was teaching new people, and 1 time I was teaching. You know, I was in a full game where everyone knew what they were doing, and it's just a nice game. It's smooth, and CGE do seem to have a knack for this. They create these games that have a lot of options, and it's again another one of those, oh, you've got a lot of options, which one do I pick type thing. But they make the rules smooth so that you can learn the game nicely. Some people criticize it for being, you know, too much heavily focused on research. The expansions help with that, although with the different boards. But then honestly, I have played and won this game using every different type of strategy in here. I have done card focus, I've done, you know, guardian focus, I've done exploratory focus, I've done research focus, I've done diversification. All the strategies can work. The difference is that the research track is a bit easier for people to grok. You know, there's a track, there's the costs laid out in front of you, make sure you've got them and move yourself up. You know, it's a simple thing to get in your mind. That doesn't necessarily mean that you'll always win if you do it. You can do it badly, and I can do other stuff better than you can potentially. So it's not, you know, a broken game as some people call it. But yeah, I love it. You know, I see these two every time I go to a convention. You know, they're always good, nice to chat to. This has just been easily, I think, my favorite game from CGE. They just knocked it out of the park with this one. And every time new content comes out for it, I'm game. I'm game for more variety in here. Just don't overcomplicate it. Just give me more boards, more cards, and I'm happy. For some reason on my first choice, I always forget to mention the positions. Lost Ruins of Arnak climbed 4 places, so it was on my 14, now it's my 10. So it's still in the same sort of ballpark area, but it has managed to finally take a podium spot. Well, at least, a runner-up spot, shall we call it. But this one has risen even higher, in fact, actually. This has gone up 8 places from 17 to get into my number 8. I'm kind of curious as to how it's managed to shoot that high compared to some of these other games, but when I have played this pretty much solo only, it's very difficult to get to the table with 2 or now 3 players. It's, you know, just more tricky to get that scenario. But solo, this is the purest Euro sandbox that I can think of. It's just, here's a bucket of options. How many options would you like? Would you like to raise some cows and sheep? Would you like to farm some grain or reed? Would you like to dig up peat? Would you like to improve your tools? Would you like to chop some wood? Would you like to build some carts or some boats or build a building or go extend your ditch? You know, would you like to, you know, I mean, seriously, it's insane the amount of options this game has. This is Uri Rosenberg's magnum opus for me personally, Fields of Arle. I love this, and you know, I would certainly not say no to, you know, box fart. But you know, I wouldn't say no to, you know, a big box for this, you know. Although to be fair, storing this is not that hard when you've got the folded space insert. I mean, all these boards pretty much come out in one big go, and then you've got everything sort of nicely arranged by player with all the tiles and stuff, and you know, it's a really solid game. Oh man, it's worker placement, but you have 2 seasons, so you can only access certain actions in certain seasons, but it's all about the options. I mentioned this with Caverna and the other game and Black Forest and that. I love games that just give me a wealth of options and let me choose what I want to do. Will I be efficient doing it? That's on me. But the game's not telling me, no, you can't do this, you idiot. I mean, that's negative points for you. It's like, you know, I don't want that. This is just literally, here's a bucket load of stuff, choose. And it's not to say that, oh, well, it doesn't matter what you do then. It's like, no, it does matter. You still have to do it well. But one game I can be raising a ton of different animals. One game I could be just literally talking about, farming wheat. And, you know, one game I might just be, you know, getting leather, making coats. I might be trading with the local villages. I might just, with the expansion, I might import tea and export fur coats to, you know, Iceland or whatever. It's like, you can do so much in this game. It's unreal. unreal. And there's not even a ton of rules in it. You know, a lot of the stuff is mostly all the options you have. The rules kind of just blend with each other. Yes, you do have a lot of action spaces to learn, but then I don't hear the Feast of Odin fans complaining when they have 60 action spaces to learn. It's the same deal with this. And Feast of Odin is still on my shelf, don't get me wrong. Although, to be fair, I've not played it in years. Feast of Odin is going downhill for me. That's a bit too much to get to the table. There's a reasonable amount to learn. You do still have 60 action spaces on there. And at the end of the day, this one gives me the feel of I'm building a farm, I've got my estate, I'm doing all these cool things and that. Feast of Odin is a game of Tetris dressed up as a Viking game. The theme doesn't immerse me as much. So I don't know how much longer Feast of Odin can really stay in my collection, but I do enjoy the game. But predominantly solo, that's the thing. I refuse to play Feast of Odin 3 or 4 player, it just takes forever. So it's got problems. This one, on the other hand, doesn't. It's the purest Euro sandbox that I have. And on my list, as I look, I mean, there are, you know, Euro games further up this list, but we're talking like the sort of what feels almost old school Euro. You know, the old school Rosenberg style of here's a bunch of stuff, get victory points, do lots of cool stuff. You know, this is what I think of as the benchmark for this. It can only be played 2-player. If you get the base set, you need Tea and Trade to make it 3-player, which has a quick start variant for both 2 and 3 players, which is pretty handy actually. But you know, if you're not desperate to play it 3-player, then you don't desperately need the expansion. It's just more content. 2-player is perfectly fine, a nice head-to-head, but honestly, I just like playing this solo. You know, you can play it solo. You've got a little AI thing that blocks certain spaces, so it's not entirely just beat your own score. But I just love having good fun with it, just deciding what am I going to do this game and just having fun with it. That's the essence of a pure sandbox. And if you're not into sandbox games, this is going to drive you up the wall. But if you are, I seriously suggest trying to find it.
No, it's too perilous.
Number 8, also up 8 places. Certainly, I think the bottom of this list has had some, you know, new entrants to the list, and these have replaced the ones that fell off from the last session. But yeah, it was my 16, now it's my 8. And so, certainly these last 3 games, Arnak, Arl, and this one, have sort of been grouped together, and now they've like solidified themselves as, no, these are actually games that I really do want to keep in my collection no matter what. And this one is a very simple Euro game. It's a fairly oldish game actually. I think it came out around 2013 time. I mean, old by modern standards anyway. And it's always just gone down well. It's very simple, quite light, gorgeous artwork from Bombix, who don't normally do a lot of games, period, let alone ones that I can get behind. But Abyss has just worked for me. It's gorgeous fish-like creature artwork. It's very simple rules. You've got 3 actions, pick one of the 3, next person's turn. It's got a small level of interaction with how you actually acquire the different ally cards you need to recruit the lords. That is interactive with other players, so it's better played as a 3 or 4 player game than it is played as a 2-player, for example. And the expansions made it better. The first one, Kraken, introducing the nebulous currency, a bit like the corrupted skull stuff in Lords of Waterdeep, but particularly the second expansion, what was it called? The first one was Kraken, the second one was called Leviathan. That was it, Leviathan. I've done reviews on both. And Leviathan took away the one bad mechanic from the base game, that monster track, that was a bit garbage, and replaced it with the Leviathan creatures that give you another way to score and more stuff to think about.
There's always a bigger fish.
It's a really solid expansion, but the game itself is just, again, silky smooth, but for some reason this one it's engaging enough for what depth and time it has. This game won't take you more than 90 minutes to play. The rules are super simple and super easy to teach. Even with both expansions, I can teach this to brand new players. I'll kick their rear end easily. I mean, this is not a game that you can autopilot, and you know, I certainly have a bit of an advantage when I play against new players, but you know, they still get some enjoyment out of it. And all the lords with different player powers, the interaction with the allied cards, you know, creating your own little sort of mini engine, and the game doesn't drag out. It gets to that 7th lord mark and you think, yeah, that's a good time to end it. This is fine, you know, I'm good with this. And it works so nicely for me. It's always been a favourite since I've had it. I mean, I haven't got the box here, it's in the other room, but it's quite worn. You know, it's one of those boxes where you can see the scuff marks all over it. It has been brought out a lot with the play mat as well to, you know, make it look even better on the table. And certainly this can create some of the best photogenic shots of a game ever, just because the artwork looks that gorgeous. They've reprinted it every now and again in kind of like revised boxes. I hear rumors they might be doing an Abyss big box, I'm not sure, or some kind of Abyss thing that amalgamates the expansions into it. I don't know that for certain. I haven't really looked into it, but if they are, then seriously consider it, because having the 2 expansions to this game really does elevate it. Base set Abyss is still really great fun, but it wouldn't be top 10 material without it. I think you definitely at least want the 2nd expansion and then bolt on the 1st one afterwards. But yeah, it's just really good, solid game. I love Abyss. Number 7, up 2 places from 9. It's still in the top 10, and it's just basically confirmed to me that this will probably remain a top 10 game, or at least remain in sort of around this area for a bit. The new expansion has taken a while before it's actually getting fulfilled, but, even without the expansion, I still love this game, and it's another one of those games where here's a bunch of options, what do you want to do? You've only got 4 actions in the game, but you've got loads and loads of cards, and that's one thing I like. Yes, they're not necessarily multi-use cards, although they can potentially have multiple uses depending what you do with them, but it's more the fact that it gives me all these different cards and I've got to look at them and think, right, okay, that's garbage, that's good, I could compost that one, I could do this, I could play this, that's fine, these are good, save those for later, those ones less so, and you're picking your battles and choosing the best things to focus on from a constantly shifting hand of cards. That's a really cool one for me. Add a really nice theme, add beautiful photographic imagery, and Earth becomes one of my favorite games. This, from inside up, has just been a surefire hit, and it's lodged on the chair. That's not helping. Here we go. Earth. Cannot wait for the expansion just so that I can replace the prototype one in this, and I certainly did do a preview of it. The expansion is not amazing. I think the expansion is going to be good, but it's not essential by any means. But yes, I certainly do enjoy this. The folded space insert for this is great. It really does store things nicely. Everything is sleeved, everything is nicely arranged. You can set this up in mere minutes and you can get going. And it's just a really solid experience. All the cards you play in your little tableau, 4 actions, very easy rules, and you're constantly engaged because when somebody picks an action, you then follow on with all your stuff. So someone is going to do blue and take all the seed cubes. Okay, well, what do I have with blue? Well, let's see. My island does this does this, that does this. Do I want to compost that in order to get this? Nah, I'll leave that one, but this ability does this. And yeah, you're going to have some turns that you don't do as much as others, especially if you focus. If I focus mostly on yellow, then somebody else might pick red, and it's like, I don't do very much for red. But the turn's over nice and quick, and then it's your turn, then you pick yellow, and you get to do all sorts of cool stuff. And I get why people sort of bounced off this one. I can see where people don't like this game. But it just works for me. It does exactly what I want it to do for a card tableau engine builder game. Giving me that quick sensation of build up a tableau of cards, do cool stuff with them, better than anything like, people compare this to stuff like Wingspan and stuff, and that's not really a fair comparison. They're not the same type of game. I compare this more to something like Ares Expedition, where you end up with a smorgasbord of cards and you do an action and everybody else follows the action. It's got closer roots to that than it does Wingspan. But this one kicks Ares Expedition to the curb. Ares Expedition takes forever and, clogs up a bit, and that. This one just goes like the clappers and then ends within a decent amount of time. Granted, I don't want to play it with 5 players. That is dumb. Even with the lack of downtime, 5 players is still way too long. But it's just such a great one. I like the solo mode. I like playing it at least even 4 player, but 2 or 3 players, fantastic. I only wish that the BGA implementation for this was less clunky. It does have that problem where the online version of this can't handle all the stuff going on. It has a bit of a memory leak problem, but it doesn't matter, because when I take this to board game night, particularly Southampton game night, this one just gets played a lot. In fact, I need to introduce this to the Bogner Club and see what they think, actually. Maybe I'll try that in the next session. But Earth, it's gorgeous, it's smooth, it's fast, it gives me all sorts of choices to make on a consistent basis all throughout the game. What else is there to say? I love it. If you don't,
I'll turn you into a f***ing tree.
Number 6 hasn't moved from last year. It was 6 this year, it's 6 last year, and for those people who claim that I don't like heavy games, I already did this rant in the previous video, so I'm not going to go on a full-on meltdown here. But let this top 10 show you that heavy games do work for me, And this, from a particular designer who is beloved by heavy gamers everywhere, is my favorite, hands down, no question, no contest, from this designer. This designer has been, loved by loads. He's but he's gone a bit downhill lately, I think. I think his recent games have, definitely been on a lower bar than some of his original stuff. And from original stuff, even though this is technically a re-implementation, you cannot beat Kanban from Lacerda. Kanban EV. Now, the original one I already loved. This new version, where it looks great, the ENO2 artwork makes it a lot clearer. You have a new solo mode in here. You've got the variants for mean and evil Sandra's done. It does nothing else but improve this version, and man, do I love it. Gallerist is a second, as you've seen on my list. I would say Vinyos is probably third and Lisboa is fourth. But these are the ones that I keep. Was not the biggest fan of Weather Machine. It's okay, it's average. Did not like Inventions at all. Escape Plan can die in hell.
Wow, that was pretty brutal even by my standards.
No backsies.
Wasn't a massive fan of CO2, but that was one of his earlier ones, so I'm not too fussed. I don't really include that in his mix, really. And I've not played Speakeasy, the new one, but I would like to try Speakeasy. It could be a return to form. But Kanban's fantastic. I mean, building cars in a factory while dodging your boss who's marking you at every turn and trying to be better than your other employees. Who hasn't been in that situation in their job in one of those respects or another? But the new version looks fantastic. You've got, player boards, you've got really nice pieces. Some people went for the metal cards. I think that's ridiculous, but you've got a beautiful board that's functionally so much better than it was before. You've got dual layer player boards. You have got chunky wooden pieces. It's such a glorious thing on the table. But it's the theme that draws me into this one. Building the cars and dodging your boss at work. It's a cool worker placement system where you've only got so many spaces, but the timing is everything here. It resolves from top to bottom. So you gotta think, well, hang on, that person's gonna act before me. They'll get to do this before I do. That's a problem. I want to go to this department to get parts, but so-and-so is not going to leave that spot until later, so maybe I should opt to go lower than him on that turn, so that next turn I can do this. You got to do a decent amount of forward planning in this, which is all good, thinky, nice stuff. You've got different paths to victory. You're going to get a load of cars, focusing on a typical type of car. Are you going to go more for the objectives in the meeting, or are you going to ignore those and focus more on doing cool stuff during the game? There's a lot of different ways to play it, but oh man, it's for the amount of stuff that's in this game, it's surprisingly clear to follow. The R&D rules are maybe a little bit fiddly, but other than that, everything else is clear as day. Definitely a lot easier to learn this than some of his other Lacerders. I mean, Gallerist is definitely easier, but Vinyos and Lisboa, no way, this is much easier to learn. And certainly a lot easier to learn this than something like Inventions or Weather Machine. But this is like the one that just works for me. I say, and a lot of it is probably down to the theme. I think the theme is just one that I really like. I like cars, I like the idea of building them, and I love the idea that you've got to dodge your boss. This boss who goes around, and when she gets to a department, you always play her mean version. I think playing the nice version is too nice. You want to play her mean version. So she comes to the department and goes, right, have you met this criteria? No, well, I'm going to penalize your points. It's like, and you try to outstudy your opponent, so you get more learned than them, so that when Sandra comes around, they pick on other players.
That just sounds like slavery with extra steps.
This is a very interactive Euro. What other players do is going to really have a big impact on what you do on your next few turns. You cannot ignore other players at all. You've got to pay attention to what they're doing. That's, again, a hallmark of a good Euro. It's not multiplayer solitaire. It was just such a good design before, but in its original Stronghold Games version, the graphic design really let it down, as well as such a terrible rulebook. Here though, great rulebook, great art, great graphic design. Yeah, I mean, it is my favourite Lacerda, without a shadow of a doubt. Could Speakeasy also be a good game? I hope it will be, because I would like to see Lacerda return to form. Because I think ever since Lisboa, he's definitely sort of dropped the ball a bit. A bit like how Stonemaier dropped the ball for me after Wingspan. Lacerda's kind of dropped the ball for me after Lisboa, with the recent other releases. But come on, let Speakeasy be fantastic. Let me really get into that game and see, yes, a return to form. Back to the great thematic Euros that he did. Stop all this dry nonsense where it's all abstract and the things don't make sense. Don't make me put tiles on a grid to form patterns for no reason whatsoever. You're not Stefan Feld, you're Vital frickin' Lacerda.
You were the chosen one! It was said that you would destroy the Sith, not join them!
Number 5 has dropped a single place. Yeah, big whoop, it's dropped a single place. Although this one has been on the downhill trend for a couple of years now. And when I say downhill trend, it doesn't mean like, oh, now the game's garbage. I still adore this game. It's my 5th favorite game. Give me a break. But out of a lot of the games in my top 10s, this is the one that's slowly being like, oh yeah, you're creeping up, and now you're my number 1, and then creep down a little, creep down a little, creep down a little, creep down a little. But it's like, it's always on the downturn. And I think the main problem I have is that I've just been playing a lot of other games. This one is a little bit harder to get to the table solo sometimes because of how much is in there. And I always feel a little bit like the noob with this game. You know, this is a game that I actually like to play with people who know the game better than I do, because I find that I'm capped at a certain difficulty level for this co-op game, you know, where, you know, if I play against an adversary on this level and below, I'll be fine. But as soon as I go above a certain level, I just can't hack it. I can't play this two-handed very well. I have to play it true solo, and on certain difficulties, true solo just doesn't work. But if I can get over that mindset, then I get to have a blast with this co-op game that has always served me well, and that is the fantastic Spirit Island. Yeah, doesn't like heavy games much.
There's that word again, heavy. Why are things so heavy in the future? Is there a problem with the Earth's gravitational pull?
$2. Yes, whether this is on the app on Steam, which is a pretty good app, even if it is expensive, you know, or it's in board game form, Spirit Island is fantastic. I mean, greater than games, like, surprised me no end with this. And this was a slow burn. The history of this was that people kept banging on about this game. I thought, oh, let's give it a try, let's give it a try. And so someone taught me this with 3 of us. I think it was a 3-player game at, funny enough, our Southampton group, like years and years and years ago. And they did such a poor job in teaching it. They didn't really know the rules that well. They weren't able to help us through it. And I just felt like I was kind of meandering through it. It didn't sour me on the game. I could see its potential, but it was difficult to access that potential. I couldn't unlock it because the barriers to entry were so high for this, and they still are, you know, and, you know, that teach was not doing a good job. But Spirit Island, once I gave it another chance, and I didn't give it another chance until years later. I think God knows how many years had passed, and I decided, oh yeah, I really should give that a try. And so I just went and bought a copy of Spirit Island, learnt it normally, played it myself solo, found some people who knew what they were doing. In fact, you know, as much as I don't get on with the Portsmouth Club anymore, you know, I used to play Spirit Island with a few people there, and they got me into this game properly, so I kind of do owe them one for that. But this one with Nature Incarnate, Branching Claw, Jagged Earth, it's even got the spirits from the, what was it, that Horizons of Spirit Island set in there. This has got everything in it, nicely arranged, folded space-wise, and I love it. Such a tricky co-op, such a thinky one, but such a thematic one. All these spirits feel like the spirits that they are. This big rock golem is very defensive, can take the hits.
Like big, good, strong hands.
This slumbering snake kind of just sits there and builds up until eventually it explodes into something crazy. You've then got this fire dragon that basically heats up the local area. And this isn't even all the boards. I mean, there's a bunch of boards in there still. Here's a bunch of boards in my hand. There's more in here. There are so many spirits in this game. It is friggin' real. But yeah, these are the Horizon ones. I don't have the wooden versions. These are the card ones, but big word, I'm not that fussed. But all of these, you know, like Lightning Swift Strike, Strength of the Earth, River Surges and Sunlight, Relentless Gaze of the Sun, Breath Darkness Down Your Spine, Spread of Rampant Green, one of my favourites, the Bringer of Dreams and Nightmares. I love playing the fear spirits in this, the ones who generate a ton of fear and control the battlefield. Those are the ones I enjoy more. I'm less good with the ones that just straight up kill everything, you know, and they're definitely my weak spot in terms of, you know, being able to play this game. So yeah, there's definitely a lot for me to learn, and when I play true solo, it's very difficult to win on higher difficulties. But honestly, I should really stop thinking like that, because at the end of the day, this is a co-op, and I can play this how I like, you know, so no, I can't go on Reddit and boast, yay, I beat Spirit Island on difficulty level 6 on England with this spirit, I'm the greatest, everybody bow down before me. All shall love me and despair. What the hell? Who cares? I don't care, alright? At the end of the day, I want to play a game where I've got kind of like a 50-50 chance of winning, or maybe like a 60-70% chance of winning. So that if I do stuff wrong, I will lose. But if I do stuff right, hopefully it will pay off and I win. I don't want the game to beat me down relentlessly by punching me in the nuts every turn, you know, until I get a chance to do anything remotely effective on something like level 6 difficulty, which that tends to feel like. It literally does feel like getting kicked in the nuts every turn. But you know, that aside, this is just such a good game. You know, it's built to a budget, even though it's quite a pricey game. You know, you've got the little spindly miniatures and stuff, but the thought that has gone into this game, the thinking power, all the maths that must have gone in to make all these different spirits and everything. It's such a wonderful game, but it does creep down my list mainly because it hasn't seen a few plays lately, and you know, I am a bit of a noob with the game, so that mindset does sometimes cloud my enjoyment at times. But nah, when I can get into this game, it is just so solid.
I never get involved in politics.
Okay, my number 4 went up a place. So this was my 5. It now switched with Spirit Island in order to be my number 4. And I can't get this game out for you because it's currently being painted. Yeah, I don't normally care about having my miniatures painted. I've spoken on my last podcast how I'm really trying to venture away from having miniatures in my games. You know, I backed Revenant at the non-miniature version on Kickstarter, so on GameFound. So, you know, I am starting to get annoyed with miniatures. This is a game that I went full on with the miniatures. Spent way too much money on this game. An excessive amount. You know, value for money be damned at this point. But I've got a lot of plays of it. I love it solo, I love teaching it to new players, and it always goes down well. I have got loads of content in this game with the 2 expansions, and I've now commissioned someone locally to, well, semi-locally, he's all the way in like Hythe near Southampton, to paint all the models of this game. I've already seen some pictures, I even showed a few of them off on the recent podcast, and it's looking good so far. He's on holiday now, so I won't get the game back until probably late March, that's what I'm aiming for, but Deep Rock Galactic. Yeah, the first miniatures game where I actually want the miniatures painted. This thing is going to look fantastic when I get it back to the table. You know, so probably some point late March, maybe Shake, Battle and Roll, the convention. I might bring it there and show it off. But oh man, you know, it's going to be worth every penny. All these models, all these little bugs and like dwarfs and all that are going to look like the video game. It's going to be fantastic. But Deep Rock Galactic is a perfect example of video game licenses done right. There's a lot of board games that have come out and just pasted on whatever video game IP they can. They don't feel like the video game, they're just, yeah, whatever, it could be anything. You know, was it the recent Mass Effect that we had lately? Yeah, I've not played Mass Effect, so it probably has some effect, but I reckon you could replace the Mass Effect theme with any generic theme and it would still work. But Deep Rock Galactic is Deep Rock Galactic. Everything in this game is what is in the video game. These types of bugs, these type of dwarfs, these guns, these, you know, the whole idea of drilling through the actual terrain to get to places, you know, that you couldn't otherwise do. All the different swarm events, all the different types of missions like the drill dozer, the liquid Morkai, the eggs, the big dreadnought, you know, the mini expansions I've got. In fact, I've got some of the boxes over there still because for some reason I can't chuck out boxes. Here we go. Here we go, there's a couple here. So I went mad on the recent Kickstarter. So Corlock Tyrant Reed, which I must admit, I'm not a huge fan when this one turns up, but it's a mini expansion, whatever. But then you've got like the Bolt Detonator in the game. Yeah, the big giant yellow pustule monster. I mean, when this is painted, I can't wait to see this painted. This is going to be awesome. But when this turns up in the game, it's like a huge nuke that walks around. You chop it down to its hit points, and then it explodes and takes out most of the surrounding area.
One more.
It's great when it turns up in the video game. It's fantastic when it turns up in the board game. It's just such a game changer. But yeah, it's just the passion that went into this can be seen, and some video game board games just don't keep that same passion level. Here though, you know they worked hard on it, and the same people are doing Valheim, you know, as the next one, and I'm looking forward to that. I think Valheim's going to be probably really solid as well if they put as much effort as they did into Deep Rock. Now, you know, can they make Valheim work as a board game? It's quite an involved survival game, but I've played it a lot with friends, so I'm definitely looking forward to getting a copy of that one, hopefully as an official one to review. But I mean, I'm trying to think about the video game license stuff. I mean, Star Wars is not technically a video game, I mean that counts, Same with Chaos in the old world, that doesn't technically count, but I've got XCOM down there. XCOM worked great as a video game port of a board game. Doom did a good job. Frostpunk, actually, yeah, Frostpunk from the other session. Again, video games, I think, fit board games really well because they're already well-established themes that are popular. And as long as you respect those themes, then the game will be more immersive. It will be better. It will easily be better than it could be if you just literally went, oh well, it's got the images from the game. Yeah, fine. I mean, that will do. I mean, the Invincible card game I reviewed a while back. It's a fine game. It's a decent enough card game, but you could replace it with pretty much any theme and it wouldn't make a difference. It's just got shots from the Invincible show, which I do love. I'm watching season 3 at the moment, but yeah, it's like, it could be any superhero card game and it would still work fine. It's not really paying enough respect to the original theme, whereas something like Deep Rock does. It's a co-op. I'll teach it to new players every time. I'll play it solo. I'll play multi-handed. I'll play true solo with Bosco, the little robot. I'll play any mission in that box. It is my skirmish game of choice. There's a lot of these games with skirmish style miniatures versus AI bots and stuff, and a lot of them just don't really work for me, or they find like generic zombicide and all these ones. Yeah, we've seen it all before. Deep Rock's the one that got it right.
To rock and stone.
Luke doesn't like heavy games. Luke only likes to play games that are 60 minutes long. Luke doesn't like downtime or anything like that. Me. Shut it.
Good day, sir!
Doesn't like long games or short, long games or heavy games and that. Can you think of anything that disregards that saying more than hegemony? Yes, we are into the podium position of my favorite games of all time, and this is typically on average a 4-hour Euro interactive long monstrosity of a game. And I adore it. This was one of the most complex and lengthy reviews that I've had to do for a game. This one took a ton of time to prepare for that one. You can play a game like a bunch of times and get used to it now, but this one required extensive rules learning. This one required a lot of games, at conventions over and over to get my thoughts gelled into what I was going to think of this game. And Hegemony is just a fantastic, innovative game. It's something different. Now, granted, the new one that they're doing, World Order, not as keen on, I must admit. I've only demoed it, but it feels more like Twilight Struggle with some extra bits, and another Twilight Struggle fan. I'm not even a big Area Control fan, frankly, so World Order might not appeal to me as much, but Hegemony, this 4-player social political sort of class system game where each of you takes a different faction, like working class or capitalist, and everything that you do impacts all the other players. This game is just a technical marvel, as well as being so much fun. So much fun. This is like the ultimate convention game. I'll even play it solo from time to time using the Automna cards. It's much better to play as a group, but man, I mean, I've got the E-Raptor insert in here. So I've got the one with the sort of UV printed sides and that. It's got all these different trays for resources and stuff. So, this one, that was a little loose. I think someone packed it away a bit weird last time, but this one is just so nicely organized. And even though the money components are somewhat, there's a little bit of a play in the lid there. Somebody packed the components in wrong, so it's not quite fully down, but that's fine. But this one is just such a fun game. I mean, all the 4 classes work differently. The working class plays very differently to the middle, to the capitalist, to the state. Everybody's got their own sort of favorite class. I quite like playing the state personally, because the state doesn't have that many actions in the game, but they've got to pay attention to what the other 3 players are doing, because they've got to balance all the other players out, because that's how they get points. But you have to end up on top, so you can't help someone out too much. You need to reel some back in and propel others forward, and I love that in games when it happens. But man, at conventions with people I know in the board gaming world, this one is a game that almost every single time ends up getting played at a convention with me. Always. I mean, it's always played at a convention by somebody, but I think I didn't play at the last HandyCon because the game had to cancel, unfortunately. But every other convention, HandyCon, GridCon, Shake, Battle, and Roll or whatever, this game comes out. This game is just brilliant. It is it just blows my mind how you came up with this and how you made all the mechanics gel together. And what I love especially about this one is that whenever you get asymmetric factions, you always get the people who come out going, this one's overpowered, this one's underpowered. And in my opinion, I do think maybe the capitalist is a little harder to win with. I think the middle class is definitely the hardest to do well with. It's the hardest to grok. It can be powerful. I mean, I've won as the middle class multiple times.
Toffs at the top, plebs at the bottom, and me in the middle making a fat pile of cash out of bills.
It's the hardest one for new players to grok, whereas the working class is a lot easier, and the state, as long as they do a reasonable job, can just grab points, and it's very dependent on the other players bringing the state back in order to stop the state winning, which new players aren't very good at doing. So it can be fragile in that sense. You know, you do want a balance of players, and I have had the occasional game end a little bit sourly because one new player has done something totally stupid and despite advice has just gone with it, and it's king made someone else or it's completely destroyed it. So it's not a foolproof system. It can go down that route, but it's rare. It's very rare. It's just for 4 hours I am engaged. I'm not bored. Some people might take a little long with their turns, but I'm always interested in what everyone else is doing. I've got to plan out what I'm doing for the round. Everything is interesting to see, so those 3 to 4 hours go by at a decent pace and I don't feel bored. There's plenty of 3 hour plus Euro games where I'm bored sitting there waiting for the turn to come around, or I'm just not that immersed. Here, that doesn't happen. It just always works. But going back to that whole overpowered, underpowered point, this is one of the first games I've seen where, and the designer made a big deal about this, there is a thread on BGG for every class in this game saying it's overpowered. You know, most games will clearly have these two are overpowered. Like, I mean, Expeditions by Stonemaier. I know I keep going back to Stonemaier, but it's the best examples I can think of. But, you know, Expeditions has got 5 player powers. 2 of them are clearly 10 times more powerful than the other 3. You know, it's just, and that is like a shared opinion by most people. This one here, though, there is a thread saying middle's too overpowered, state, capitalist, and working. All 4 of them have got a thread. If that's not telling you that the game's pretty well balanced, then I don't know what is. But, you know, I found it quite amusing when I found that out. This game is just brilliant. I love it. It is the heaviest, longest game in my entire collection. I don't think any game comes close to beating this in terms of its weight and length. But, you know, it did what I needed to do. It gave me an interesting theme, which I'm not exactly a massive politics fan. You know, I don't like politics at all. But, you know, this one, just from a social political perspective, you know, working class, middle class, and all that lot, this one you can be bantering, make jokes, you know, make references to real life. It just creates all sorts of cool stories, and they just write themselves. Absolutely love it. So yes, I do like long games at people when they're done right.
Help! Help! I'm being repressed, bloody peasant!
Number 2 has been in my top 10 list since the dawn of friggin' time. Yes, this one for ages was my number 1 game of all time and could still occasionally be my number 1 game of all time, but I don't think it's fallen any lower than 3 in its history. I mean, it was 2 last year, it's 2 this year, and oh man. This one has just worked, and we've just literally talked about another game from this publisher. So this publisher doesn't put out a lot of games, but they've put out 2 of my top 5 favorite games of all time. That's pretty good going. I love superheroes as a theme. You already know what it is. It is the game that has just been one of my all-time favorites since forever. Sentinels of the Multiverse. And I know not everybody is into the thinkiness of trying to keep all the effects going. I've now managed to get that down to a T with my games, so I can follow them a lot better. But I've got so much of this game on my shelves, because these are the 2 from the new version, which I do advise that if you're going to get this game, you get this new version. Trust me, it's great value for money for what you get in the game. But I've still got 2 boxes in the other room with all the Cauldron stuff, you know, which is a fan expansion for the old set. I still have that giant black crate on the shelf in the other room with all of the old collection in it. I can't bear to scrap it. I can't bear to sell it. Will I ever play those again? I don't know, because this version is so damn good, but I can't bear to let go of that history. It's like when I finally scrapped my Doctor Who VHS tapes. I grew up with Doctor Who. I had all the VHSs and I was like, oh, I love it, I love it. Maybe not all of them, but certainly like the more common ones. And when it came time to finally say, look, I've got them all on DVD now, why do I have all the VHS tapes? It's time to free up space. Man, that was a heartbreaking day to take those down to the tip. I think I sold some of them off, the rest I had to scrap. But it's the same with the old Sentinels. I just can't bear myself to get rid of them. But this is what I want in a superhero card game. Very thematic. All the heroes distinct and feel like what they do, and they're different. It's like playing My Hero Academia, the board game, basically. All these different superheroes with weird abilities. But the other thing I love with this is that unlike some of the stuff like the DC deck building game and stuff like that, clues in the title, it's not a deck builder. All the decks are pre-constructed. It's not like Marvel Champions where you've got to build your deck in advance. If I decide I want to play Bunker or Legacy or Night Mist or Setback or Expatriate or whatever like that, the deck's ready-made. They're sleeved, they're nicely organized. All I got to do is go, right, I fancy playing Tempest this game, so I'm just going to take the Tempest deck. That's my deck. It's pre-done. All I got to do is shuffle it and take a character card. Take a villain, okay, same, take their deck, good. Environment, right, good, take their deck. I can play this solo free-handed without any problems, but I love playing this 3 or 4 player with other people, teaching or otherwise, and I mean, I've got a couple of people in the Southampton group who have played this a lot. One in particular, we play 2-player of this, you know, because he's played the Cauldron, he's come up with his own versions of characters, he's really into it like I am, and so we can have 2 players of this playing 2-handed, and we can get the game done in a nice short space of time, but we're having such fun with the theme and the thinkiness. We work like a well-oiled machine, and I love the fact that you've got the different character cards in this now. So as well as the initial sort of like pre-made ones that you've then got all of these, and this is just in the sets. These aren't Kickstarter extras. These are in these boxes. You've got these different alternate comic versions of them. So you've got, like, for every single character, about 3, sometimes 4 different versions of their hero. So you can play different play styles with the same character. Yes, they've got their main mechanism of how they work. Like, one of my favorites is Fanatic. She's, hard to say, she's not quite a fallen angel, but she's kind of blessed and, you know, has all that sort of religious, you know, cross stuff. But she basically gets super powerful when she's on 10 hit points or lower. So you're trying to keep her close to the death edge, but she can resurrect herself, she can heal up, and, you know, you're trying to constantly juggle around with that 10 hit point marker. One of her characters that I've played in this has her start at maximum 10 HP. You have to constantly keep her at maximum 10 HP, but it means that she starts the game souped up from the beginning. She's so much fun to play. You know, and all of these heroes are fun to play. There isn't really a hero in here that I can say, I kind of get bored playing this one. You know, maybe Legacy. Legacy's very basic in how they operate, but I tend to give Legacy to newer players because he's a very easy one to work. But Legacy's still a very useful character to have, regardless of the version you use. So, you know, he's a low complexity hero. Same with Ra. Maybe I prefer playing the high complexity ones, but oh man, I can't wait for the newest expansion, Desperation. I mean, I didn't kickstart it because it's not really worth it, but, you know, for the shipping cost. But yeah, I can't wait for more content for this. This one has just been such a faithful game for so many years. So like over a decade have I loved this game, and it's been like a top 3 game for me. I just can't get enough out of it. And I've been playing it recently. I've played a few solo games. I played a 2-player at the club and, you know, another 4 players. So this one gets plays. And as much as the app is fantastic, but it's based on the old version. They are apparently making an app version of the definitive edition. Whether you play this on electronic version or in tabletop version, I don't mind. But seriously, if you like superheroes, if you like co-op card games, if you can put up with a bit of juggling with the mechanics, you know, the mechanics are a bit more streamlined in this version, but you do have to keep track of a lot of stuff that's going on. It's not an easy game to pick up. But if you're willing to put up with that, this one is just so much fun. I really like it. And it really was a toss-up between this and my number 1. But I think I think the fact that my number 1 gets played so often lately is what sort of elevated it above this one. But yeah, man, I love it. Great in games. You've created 2 of my favorite games ever. Well done. Well done. Here we go. My number 1 game, and most of you will know what it is by now because you will have also twigged that the top 3 games are the same as last year, and I wish that he could have fluctuated a little bit more, like the bottom end of this list, but what can I say? When these are my favourite games I enjoy playing, they're my favourite games, and it's going to take a lot to topple them, really. But this game has been played so much. I mean, I have played this tons in tabletop form and in digital form. We have a new Steam app for this game, and I've been playing it like about 20-30 times, you know, like just constantly playing it. You know, I can play it nice and quick. I've played it on BGA with people that I know, and again, we can play it nice and quick. But even in tabletop form, we've got a lot of fans of this in the Southampton group, and there have just been times where it's like 2, 3 or 4 player, doesn't matter. You know, I might go there intending to play a different game, but this will always be in the bag, and there's like, oh, that other game didn't get played. Oh well, should we bring this one out? Yep, and we do. And we set up and we get it done in pretty quick time. And every single game I play of this, bar maybe a few with very slow people, you know, this one just goes down so well, and I can't deny it. You may hate it. I love it. It kicked the crap out of a predecessor game, which, you know, they are different in various ways, but this one is the better of the two in my opinion. I can't get enough of Art Nova. Number 3 on Board Game Geek. Wow, I mean, finally, the Board Game Geek charts is getting something right. This one just gets played so much, and I mean, one thing that cements this one. There are some of my favourite games that I have played a lot. There are some games that I haven't played that much. I mean, you can only play Hegemony so many times. It's a massive, long game, but I've still played that a decent amount. This, I think, may be the only Euro game, maybe bar a couple, where, I kid you not, I've played this over 100 times. And some of you might think, well, I can easily play a game over 100 times. Yeah, I have a lot of games in my collection, okay, and a full-time job, and I run a channel. It's not easy, okay, to play a game 100 times. But this is a 3-hour Euro game, a 2 to 3 hour Euro game that I am playing over 100 times. And I kid you not, some of that has been from BGA, some of that has been in tabletop form, a lot of it has been the Steam app recently from Direwolf, those challenge modes on there, I've been playing all of those and trying to complete them. But I love this game. I even replaced its folded space insert with the E-Raptor UV printed one. I've got a playmat for it. I've got Marine Worlds for it. I've got the map packs. You know, map pack 2's really good. But it's such a great game. And look at the gorgeousness of that insert. Look at it. It's so colourful and pretty and lovely, and I love it. It's like, but this game just works for me on so many levels. The mechanics, this is the second game that I've played, as well as New Dawn, with that typewriter mechanic. I think that mechanic's fantastic, and I want to see more games use it. But again, card tableau, making the choices, pick your battles. What am I going to do this game? How am I going to approach the strategies? It's both strategic and tactical. I think it's more tactical than strategic, in fact. And again, that works for me. You know, having a game plan, but being willing to adapt based on your map, based on the cards that come out. There is an element of luck with those cards. You know, the right cards can turn up. But I have won so many more of these games than I have lost. So I will dispute the fact that this is nothing but a luck fest. All the different cards with beautiful photographic imagery, and like people go, oh, it's not artwork, and it's like, oh, woe is me, okay? Photography is a perfectly acceptable medium in the world of art, and it takes a lot of effort to create a perfect photo. You could argue that it maybe takes more effort to create a perfect painting. Fair enough, I'm not going to dispute that. But photography still works. It works in Earth, it works in this. I mean, hell, the Gallerist has photography as one of the 4 art categories in it, okay? So it does work. But you've got all these great images of the animals. You've got, you know, from sea creatures to vultures, giant panda, jaguar, longhorn cowfish, guinea pig, white stork, Komodo, dragon, shoebill. You know, and you've got different paths to victory. You've got your maps, which you could go down the route of using their particular abilities. You might even just ignore them for the most part. You know, I've played these maps in so many different play styles. It's unreal. And with the recent map pack 2, those maps in particular allow you to be really flexible with your play style. They're excellent. It's an excellent map pack. I do recommend it. But, it's gorgeous, and I just love all the mechanics in it. Love the cards, love the typewriter mechanic, love the building of your map, love the tableau building. Every mechanic on it just works for me. And adding more variety with Marine Worlds and those special upgradable action cards, brilliant. All I want to see for this game now is just more cards. You don't need to introduce more mechanics. Just give me more maps, or better yet, just give me more cards. That's all I want, just more cards. Just add more variety. I don't think this game needs any more mechanics in it, okay? We're good. Let's just have more cards, and that will do me fine. But even with what's in here, I mean, the base set, you can only play the base set on the Steam app. It's a bit of a shame. I would like Marine Worlds to be in it, but big whoop. And it's just the fact that there have been times where it's like, okay, I need to do something else. I probably should get some editing done. And it's like, well, What's it? I need to. All right, I'll do this editing. Right, fine. And now I've got about 40 minutes before I'm going to watch some TV. You know, what can I do in that time? You know what? I'm going to fire up the Steam app and play a game of Art Nova against the AI. And you can do it in like a 45-minute time frame and play a solid game of Art Nova against some challenging AI at times. And it's just, again, a game that I'm willing to play over and over and over again. At the Southampton clubs, we literally have had a time where it's like, we started, you want to play a game of Art Nova? Yep. We can get it done quick. We already know what they're doing. Boop, zip, set up, done. Yep, cool. Yep, played the game. We've done it. Right. Want to go again? And we just reset the game and just go again. Like, people don't even realize we've switched from one game to the next. Different map, different cards, whatever, and go again. And if a game is one of those types of games that I'm willing to play over and over and over again in quick succession, it's already a game I love. But the fact that this is a 2 to 3 hour, like, Euro. I mean, yes, it can take longer than 3 hours if you're new to the game and you've got very slow players at 4. It can go longer. And that does drag out a bit. You know, I do prefer to play this with 3 players tops. I can play it solo, great. 2 players, good fun. But, this one, for me to say, this long game that I have played, I now want to play it straight away. I've done that with Hegemony once, or twice maybe, but that's a special case, okay? Spirit Island, once you've played a game of Spirit Island, you're kind of done, because it is quite a mental breakdown. Sentinels I could play multiple times in a row, and I have done, so that is a great example. But this one, for a big Euro game to be one that I'm just like, let's play it again, and again, and again, and again, over 100 times. I think, what am I up to now? Probably like 120 at this point. It's ridiculous. And as I say, to play a single game that many times, regardless of the format, bearing in mind I have so many other games that I need to play and all the channel stuff and that, has to speak volumes that this one has to be my #1 game of all time. This one and Sentinels jostle for top place on a regular basis, but it's just, it had to go to this one for just the sheer amount of time I've spent playing it. It's, despite its size, I will play it come rain or shine, and that has to be the hallmark of a great game. I wish it would sort of fit back in the box a lot better with all the stuff in it. The map packs and that do make it, a little bit top heavy, but not to a great extent. It's mostly just because I got a lot of maps. But if they do make a big box for this, I'm certainly game. And I know that somebody on Kickstarter recently did this weird, like, fancy 3D piece version, but that looked way too expensive and too excessive. I'm not that fussed about it. But, oh man, Ark Nova, Furland Spiel, the 3rd best game on Board Game Geek. Not that I really care about the charts at all, but for me, my #1 game. I totally get why some people don't like it, but don't call it a random luck fest, okay? I'm sorry, Arks has more luck in it by friggin' miles than this game does.
Are you prepared for the kind of death you've earned, little man?
And yet they will defend that to the hilt and say that this is a random luck fest. I will kick your butt at this game more times than not, and, not saying I'm amazing at it, but I've won more games than I've lost. It's not because of luck, okay? I'm one of the unluckiest people in the world when it comes to that sort of stuff. There is definitely a right way to play this game and, get good. But, I don't care. Whatever. Think what you like. I love it. This is my list. #1 game of all time. Ark Nova. There you go. Top 50 games. Now, I am not going to put these top 50 games in a written list, because otherwise, what was the point in doing the video? What I will probably do, though, is maybe put up, like, I don't know. I'll either try it as a rolling credits at the end of this video, or I'll do it as a list on my YouTube, where you can just view it as a written list. But I'll put up my 97 to 51. So, you will at least be able to see those games in list form. Now, the top 50 has had more sense checking than the lower list. So the lower list may be subject to a few weird placements, and I didn't go as far as 100 because I was kind of chopping things out of the running, and I chopped too many games, so I only ended up with 97 games left to compare. So there is that. But, I'm not going to do top 100 ever again. Top 50 I think works well. Your comments have been saying that top 50 works brilliantly, so I'm going to stick with top 50. You've been giving me the views, it's had the engagement, I'm still really enjoying doing these, but 50 is so much easier to manage because we've only just entered March and we're now done, whereas this could have dragged out to April if it was a top 100. So, this you know, you watch it in video form for the top 50, but 51 to 97, I will find a way to put it up for your viewing pleasure, and you can make your own comments on that front. But, oh man, these games are all amazing. I mean, even my 51 to 97 are games that I really enjoy, so it's not like those games are garbage. There's a thousand games that come out over the course of like the industry over the last decade. There's a lot of games to play. I have certainly not played every single game out there. That is physically impossible. But I have played a lot of games. I own a lot of games. I like a lot of games, despite my persona online, which is certainly ranting about board games. But I do love games as well. For every game that I give a 3 out of 10 and say it's hot garbage, there is a 10 out of 10 that I say this is one of the best games I've ever played, okay? And that's what a bunch of these are. All these 10 here, every single one of these, Arnak, Arl, Abyss, Earth, Kanban, Spirit Island, whatever, they're all 10 out of 10s. You know, these are games that I think are the benchmarks for their publishers, their mechanics, their themes, you know, all that stuff. They are, or their designers even, you know, they are the benchmarks that I can compare future games to. I love them that much. So yes, I do like games as well as dislike games. There's far too many people online that I swear just like everything, and that's what I have a problem with. But, you know, you watch the show to get the balanced view of both. So if you are thinking, well, you've hated on a lot of games recently, well, here's 5 videos with 50 games that I love. And you're going to get a list of another 50 in due course. So, you know, there's definitely swings and roundabouts. There's definitely, you know, apples and oranges. And there's something for everyone, hopefully, in this list. So, there you go. Top 50. Go away, paper. The elements defy me. So that's it for me on this video. Hopefully you've enjoyed the top 50 list. I'll see you next year for a redo. So, yep, don't worry. This will update each year. Will these top 10 remain in the same positions? Is something going to overtake them? Who knows? I mean, these are fantastic games, so something big's going to have to come out. And so far, we're not exactly doing that in 2025, but it's early days. This is the dry period of game releases. So we'll see what happens in the future. Next thing on the show will probably be maybe some Beyond the Game videos, Beyond the Base Game videos I need to do. Could do a top 10 list. I am currently doing playthroughs of Galactic Cruise at the moment, so I'll eventually do a full review of that. Maybe I can do a speed review of something like Video Game Champion, you know, maybe 1 or 2 others that I've got that I could do. So there's more content on the way, but for now, we are done with the top 50. So take care, and remember, regardless of whether you've enjoyed these 50 games or not, they're still only games. So hopefully whatever games you have in your top 50 are ones that you're going to keep for life. Take care.